Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 13th episode of A QISSAA with Ishika, quintessential and inspiring stories of South Asian artists. My name is Ishika Muchal, and I am coming to you from the land of the Tongva people, also known as Los Angeles, California. I am beyond thrilled to introduce my guest today, Kavi Ramachandran Ladnier, an actor, director, producer, singer, and writer. Kavi received her BFA in acting from NYU's Tisch School of the Arts and then worked with Julie Dash on HBO's Subway Stories and then her first off Broadway production, Crosscurrents. Kavi is in the cast of Mindy Kaling's upcoming TV show, The Sex Lives of College Girls, and has been in numerous TV shows in recurring roles like Just Add Magic, Mystery City, Heroes, General Hospital, Mira Royal Detective, Criminal Minds, and CSI and New York. Her films include Boris and the Bomb, Karma Calling, Janani, and more. In theater, she has worked with Yale Rep, East West Players, Getty Villa, the Rogue Machine Theater, Kingsmen Shakespeare, and Off Broadway in Rehana Lew Mirza's 2019 World Premiere of Hate. Not going to say that word online. Kavi also coaches actors, is a member of the Antius Playwrights Lab. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. And is a certified teacher of Kundalini Yoga. She's currently producing and starring in her short film Now and Never, of which I will send out the link later. I am so honored to welcome Kavi Ladnier.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's get started off with some of the basics. How did you get introduced to acting and what made you decide to pursue it as a career?
Oh, wow. It was really a moment. I was 5 years old and I was sitting in the auditorium of my elementary school, Fairfield West Elementary in Fairfield, Ohio. And, you know, those big bleachers. And I was sitting there watching The Jungle Book with my mom. And I liked The Jungle Book. It was good. It was fun. It was Disney. But when the little girl came out at the end with the pot on her head and she's just singing, and they don't even give her a name. Her name is Shanti. They don't even give her a name until
Yeah.
second film. But when she came out, it's like I just saw myself and I just looked at my mom and I was like, that's what I want to do. And so I've known, I mean, I was singing and dancing and all that stuff before that, but it was just this moment where I was like, this is what I want to do. And the irony or not irony of the fact that so many decades later, my daughter is starring in a Disney animated series is not lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just the moment where I just knew and it never looked back.
Yeah. That's such like an early age to experience like representation and how important
Yeah,
that is. Yeah.
absolutely. You know, and it's and I didn't see it again for a really long time, unless I was watching
Mhm.
like Indian movies or something with my family.
Right.
But it was enough to plant the seed, and it just that's how important it is that we see ourselves
Yeah.
represented. And it was an animated character, but you know, I just saw myself, and it inspired me.
Absolutely. And you've trained at NYU and a lot of prestigious institutions. So can you talk about some of your experience with those, the places that you've trained in?
Sure. Yeah, I went to NYU. I studied at Tisch School of the Arts, Stella Adler Academy, and then after that, I did master class at with Shakespeare and Jacobean drama my third year, and then I've had numerous wonderful teachers. You know, and the thing with acting is like every time you learn something, you know, whether it's Meisner or method or whatever it is, you know, you're just putting in tools into your toolbox, and you know, years and years and years of working, you use what you need when you need it, you know. And so I'm very blessed to have had some really great education and amazing teachers, and have a very full box of tools to pull from.
Absolutely. And can you talk about how you got your start in like professionally working in theater and then also in film and TV?
Absolutely. So, um, my f- so I was actually going to graduate early from college because I had a lot of credits from high school,
Mhm.
and yet one of the reasons I went to, I mean, I've always wanted to go to NYU, but one of the reasons I really loved it was because not only did I get theater training, but I also got to take classes and other things and explore that kind of liberal arts thing, which, you know,
Mhm.
I still loved academics, even though it wasn't like my priority. I just still loved being able to study things that were interesting to me. And so, yeah, and so I had actually quite a few credits from high school, from the IB program that I was in, that was going to allow me to graduate early. So I thought my last semester of college, I'm going to do a internship because I didn't really know much about business itself, even though I was living in New York City and things like that. So I started my internship with this woman that I had interviewed with at the end of my junior year. And the first day that I walked in, she's like, "Do you have a headshot and resume?" Now, this was in the early 90s. And so, and so I did not have a headshot and resume. That never happened
Mhm.
again. I always had one with me after that. So I had to, and there was no going online to download it from the computer thing happening.
Right.
Not what we were doing back then. So I jumped back on the train, went back to my place, got it, came back, gave it to her. She submitted it and I booked it. It was my first job at Yale Rep. So I actually, because I had that I had that semester free, I could
Yeah.
leave for a semester and then come back and graduate with my class. So I did the American premiere of the Evening Standard Award of Pentecost. It was
Oh, wow.
yeah, David Edgar, and he did Nicholas Nickleby as well, and it was incredible, you know. And I got to speak in Malayalam. I'm from Kerala, so it was really.
Mhm.
So my mom helped me translate it. The actual original script was in Sinhalese, which is the Sri Lankan language, and I thought Kerala's right there. I mean,
Yeah.
it really make a difference, and it didn't make a difference because in this particular story, they're telling the story of Rama and Sita, and
Mm.
and as a Hindu and like I know the story, I was like, I could say this in Malayalam. And so the day of the first table read, I was like, excuse me, can I possibly say this in my language? Because I came in prepared with it. And then I believe that after that, they ended up changing it to South Asian or South
Wow.
Indian or something like that. I'm not really sure,
Yeah.
it, but it was so exciting that my very first job, I got to kind of move and tell the story physically and verbally in Malayalam of Ram and Sita and on the Yale Rep stage. Like it was
Yeah.
amazing. And then I came back um, and then about a week before I graduated or 1 or 2 weeks before I graduated from college, I booked the job with Julie Dash. And that was, and I mean, it's not lost on me. We're talking, this is the mid 90s, where a little brown girl, really shouldn't be working. I mean, that's not what we were seeing on television and things like that. So I felt really, really blessed. And I actually went in, it was a rare occurrence. I went in for something that, well, I knew that I was not good at. Sarita Chowdhury actually ended up getting, and I had like really short hair and I looked like 12 and there was no way. Um, but they ended up calling me back in for another role. And it was, like a Jamaican Indian girl, and and she was a teenager, and and that's how I got my Taft Hartley, which means that's how I
Mhm.
got into SAG, and then like a week or so after I graduated from college, I was doing my first thing for HBO. I mean, it was amazing, and those first couple of years were like that a lot. It was, um, a lot of really fantastic experiences.
That's amazing. To just kind of have that in your toolkit and have that in your resume, like right off the bat. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, it was really fun. I
Yeah.
think back, it's very inspiring to me in moments where, as an actor, you have ups and downs, it's like, but to
Mhm.
remind myself of my own journey, is it just kind of fills me up with energy again.
Absolutely. And speaking of the ups and downs, can you talk about some of the early challenges in your acting journey?
I mean, I think the most was that, as I said, I've wanted to do this since I was 5, and I really didn't have anyone to look at and go, okay, this is the kind of career I want, other than, I mean, other South Asians. So I looked
Mhm.
at other people who were doing this, and there was always that nagging sense of, but I don't see people like me. And so
Mhm.
I think I almost didn't let it be about the industry and about what it was like the biggest thing was how do I stay focused so that no matter what is happening, that I don't let myself um, lose track of what I want to do,
Yeah.
and, and, um, and that was, It's funny, it didn't get hard until 2014. I mean, so many decades later. It didn't get, meaning it was always hard, but I was always so
Yeah.
good at like compartmentalizing and keeping my brain focused. And it wasn't until 2014 when it was like Oscars So White and all that stuff happened. I was in the middle of doing a play with East West actually, and
Mhm.
I just had such a deep, like it was just the floodgates open, the dam broke, and I could no longer suppress how much it hurt to not be seen for certain things or to not be, this was a time where if an agency had one, I mean, I had opportunities to be with really great managers and things who were like, well, we need to get you a really good agent. But that agency already had their one token brown person.
Mm. Yeah.
You see it less now, it's changing a little bit, but it's like that was the constant, it was like, um, I know I'm blessed and privileged to have had, representation and to be doing what I love, but you know, it was, I think part of me, I'm very grateful that I didn't let that like get me down day in and day
Mhm.
out. But when I finally accepted like the toll it had kind of taken, it took me a moment. And that's kind of where I started to find my voice and to speak up for for those kind of issues, but um, yeah, so I mean, but we're looking back at the whole scheme of things. I mean, yeah, it's challenging just to not see yourself,
Right.
to have to create something so deeply within yourself that can exist even when the world around you doesn't look like that. And I mean, look, it did. That's what I did, and that's what so many of us do. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to dig deep and create what we want for ourselves. But you know, having a little support from society and our community and all that stuff uh, would be amazing, And I've worked really hard so that my daughter's generation, your generation, like feels more of that, right? There's people who've gone through it. You see people who look like you on screen. It's a completely different atmosphere than when I was growing up.
Yeah. I mean, I feel it even now, but especially back then, like just constantly having to battle that feeling of erasure. I can only
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah, and look, it's the thing is that I have had those moments where, like, so my first TV job was on Cosby, not Cosby Show, but Cosby, and this was
Mm.
in 1996, and I auditioned for that, and my callback was with four other actors that I recognized from television, and I was the only person of color. But I
Mm.
booked it. I booked it because I think I was what they were looking for, I made them laugh, whatever it was. So I won't say that I didn't have those experiences, but the one experience every so often, and then you see those roles that you see the breakdowns and things like that, and they won't see you because for whatever reason, they've decided it needs to be someone who's white or whatever it is. Like, yes, I had those extraordinary experiences, but those are the ones that sustain you, but it still hurts when you don't get into the room for things that you know that you're right for. It's not just about
Yeah.
your acting, it's about what they perceive you're capable of doing, which that has really guided me in terms of not wanting to give other people the final say about what I do, in my
Right.
life.
And early on, did you ever feel like a pressure to change your identity to fit in or to fit casting descriptions? I've heard from a lot of people that they were forced to change their names by agents and managers. So did anything like that ever
No,
happen?
I went by Kavi Ramachandran when I first started, and then I got married and I didn't change my name. And then I decided that I wanted to take my married name, and so my friends called me Kavi, and it was my Indian friends that were calling me Kavi, so it wasn't
Yeah.
someone, so like my white friends like decided
Yeah.
to call me Kavi, and I was like, no one ever called. I like that, and then I was like Kavi Ladner. I was like, you know what, I dig that a lot, um, and Ramachandran is my father's name, I'm very proud of it. It's one of the reasons I kept it when I got married. And then I had my daughter, and Leela Ladner. And even when I got a divorce, it was like, I want her and I to have that connection. But I have added the Ramachandran back in because it is my name, so it's a long ass name, but it's there, but it's Kavi Ramachandran Ladnier. I'm very, very proud of it. It's funny because I did have a voiceover teacher years ago, and it was around the time I changed my name to Ladner. It was actually right after, who said, he was glad that I did because he wouldn't want people to just think I could do an accent, and at the time I was like, yeah, okay, because I can do more than an Indian accent. I'm happy to do an Indian accent. I love doing Indian accents. My theory with that is just, is that if you give me something that I feel needs an accent, and then and it's a deep, fully rounded character, then by all means, it's just when it becomes stereotypical that I don't like it. So I do remember that happening, him saying that, but I didn't feel that way. And then when my daughter, I've had these conversations with other actors, it's like, you should go back to Ramachandran, you should go back to Ramachandran. But for me, it's like, I really wanted to have the same name as my daughter, and yeah. And so now it's like, I get the best of everything.
Absolutely. And it's so nice to hear that you had agency over your identity throughout the whole process.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny. I don't know why I took that, it's like but it was important to me. My name is always, it's always been, for all of us, it's always such an important thing. It's like my name has many stories. I was given the name Sandhya when I was born, but no one ever called me that name. And then when I graduated from high school, I put it as my middle name because my sisters didn't have middle names. So I was like, oh, I have a middle name. So I graduated with Kavita Sandhya Ramachandran, and this person never actually existed. My green card said Sandhya, my social security card said Kavita. Like, it's kind of messed up, And then when I went to NYU, I had this tried to get work study, and they wouldn't give it to me because my green card said Sandhya on it. So then instead of dropping the Sandhya altogether, because literally no one ever called me Sandhya, I put Kavita Sandhya Ramachandran, Sandhya Kavita Ramachandran. So then I went for like a month in classes where people would go, Sandhya, and I was like, what? And I wouldn't answer because number one, they butchered it, but number two, I just didn't even think of it, and never occurred to me. So, so there's so many versions of my name, but I always had that issue of like trying to get people to pronounce it like we all do, and feeling and living in predominantly white spaces growing up where I felt like kind of bitchy because I was like constantly asking, but it was like nails on a chalkboard to me hearing my name pronounced incorrectly, and ironically, my ex-husband, when he met my friends from high school, he told them how to pronounce my name properly, and because he has, ties to the Indian community and everything. And so he like understood the language, and I really, I could have done that this whole time. And the truth is I still think about it. I still think about how do I say it, because I always say it. Doesn't matter if I'm having a great conversation. I just had an interview with someone last night about something, and it was towards the end of it that I heard that they pronounced my first name incorrectly. I have no qualms at this point of interjecting and just correcting them, because the truth is most people want that. That is about my identity, and I think we should. And I think it's very, very important that we stand up, stand up for that. I stand by anyone who feels that way.
Absolutely. I always feel like if people can pronounce Stanislavski, they can pronounce
Oh my gosh. I know. Wait, what is it? Saoirse Ronan? Like, I'm like,
yeah.
Hello, this is not as complicated. I look at Ramachandran and I'm like, it's all A's.
Yeah.
All A's, and sure, there's some sound differences and stuff like that. I don't mind correcting someone. I don't mind helping someone. It's when people say, "Oh, I'm just gonna say it wrong," and it's like it's just the way it is. I'm like, no,
it's not.
There are hard names out there.
Yeah. Like what you're saying, it's okay to help them through it, but if they're actively not trying, that hurts, because that is who you are. That's my name. That's me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, What were some of the things that you considered early on in your career when you were picking roles versus what are some of the factors you consider now?
I mean, early on, you're just grateful to get auditions and work and everything like that. And I did have, um, I mean, I did make some choices, that were, choices like how would I feel if my daughter or son saw this someday, those kind of
Mm,
choices,
yeah.
and I stick by those and I feel proud of those decisions. And I still make decisions based on, I mean, it's funny, I talk to my daughter about this all the time. And I was like, there are three reasons to take a project. And if you're really, in most of the cases, there are two of these exist. And if you're really lucky, then all three do. One, because you just can't imagine anyone else doing it. You need to do this project. The people who are involved, and the money. And sometimes you do take a project just because it's really great money and you hope that they're really good people or there's a really good script. Because I mean, look, in independent cinema and all these other things, usually it's really good people and really good script and not a lot of money, So
Right.
hopefully you've got two of those three going on. And at this point, I just want to tell stories about people like with depth. I don't, I less and less this idea of just being the sidekick and the you know obviously when you're a guest star and everything like that, you're there to prop up the main cast and everything, and that's wonderful and it's fun and it's a great gig, it's a great job, but it's like but the longer you do this, the more you just want to be able to bite into something and really create the character. And that's a lot about, that's why we create our own work, because we can't wait around for other people to use those opportunities.
Agreed. And we will get to your own work very soon. I just wanted to ask, what's your favorite part about acting and your journey so far?
Gosh, I mean, I love playing. I love, no matter what else is going on in my life, to having that exist inside of me and being able to say, and to not like push it away, but just to say, okay, I'm going to take you with me here and I'm going to play here and I'm going to be with these new people and this new space and this opportunity to get creative and um and just, see through whatever the writer is putting on the page, like see through someone else's eyes. It's like it's me seeing through the lens of that text. And um I just love it. I love it. It's I have fun. I love acting. I love it, and it's hard sometimes and it's emotionally draining and all those things, but only because it's so great to be able to just explore. And I don't care if, I have a line or if I have like, if it's a two-hander, it's like I take the time to figure out who am I and what am I doing here, and to be an actor and to be able to, I don't know. I don't necessarily like the word escape because I'm not, I mean, there are moments in my life for sure. Being able to go and do something was an escape from what was happening in the real world. But I just
Right.
feel more holistic in the way I approach things in my life now. And so I'm not pushing real life away. I'm just kind of, like I said, taking it along with me and kind of use where you are. Um, but it's therapy, it's playtime, it's and I feel like as an actor I've learned a lot of empathy, because I think early on in my career I would say no to parts that I personally didn't necessarily connect to because maybe I had a judgment, or something like
Mhm.
that, whereas now I don't that's the least reason for me not taking something or not wanting to do something, because there's always a way to find connection and empathy and compassion for these characters, and it's very important that we understand and like the people that we're working on and with.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things that I've personally learned from acting as well is to never judge your character.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's really, now that I'm getting older, it's just like I'm translating that into just not judging myself. It's
Mhm.
because there are days that I have really bad days, and there's some really great days and some mixed days and all these other things in between. And you make mistakes, you say the wrong thing, you hurt someone's feelings, you hurt your own feelings. It's like guilt and judgment have very little use. We have very little use for those things in our lives. And the more space of self-compassion we give to ourselves, I think the more space we have to create and to be able to share and give to others.
Mm-hmm. And for anyone joining right now, I'm in conversation with Kavi Ladnier, and this is a Kissa with Ishika, so please make sure to like this video if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel, just so that you get reminded whenever the next Kissa is. And back to the questions. Can you talk about the impetus behind your activism and advocacy on social media and how you've used your platform beyond acting?
Well, I wouldn't call myself an activist. I mean, I feel like there are people who doing like it's not even about that. You do what you can where you are. And that's what I try to do. I don't have 1 million followers yet. I don't have that platform, but the platform that I have, people pay attention to what I say. And so I don't take that for granted. And whether it's talking about more personal things or talking about things that are happening in the world, I feel like as long as I'm being honest about my sharing, then maybe someone else will hear if there's a message there to give, something to say, and will hear what I have to say. But I mean, I definitely feel that it's important that I use my voice, not because it's always been like, that's always been important to me, to do seva, to help others, to find a way to use my art to give, to be dharmic in my actions, in my behavior. And so that's where that stems from, and I cannot stay silent when something hurts or when something is going wrong in the world. A lot of people are like, well, you should post more pictures and you should post more this and that. And there are moments where it's just like, that's not my priority right now. It's like, I do my work, and there are moments where that's important too. And look, and the truth is that sometimes I'm super off balance, right? Sometimes it's all about the other stuff, but that is not good either, because we have got to have that balance. And I'm trying to, to find that for myself. But it's interesting, and you find it in moments of like fundraising and things like that, where, we started fundraising for my film at the beginning of the second wave in India. The worst time to ask people for money. I felt so much guilt. And I told you guilt is worthless. It is very worthless in this case, because I felt like, who am I to ask for money for my film? But eventually it was like, if we don't start asking, we don't have a film. And then you go, art is important. Art is so important, and it's like trying to navigate that space. And so I will always speak up. I pray that one day I have a much, much larger platform to be able to use my voice. But until then, like, I'm not waiting for that day. I will use whatever I have to speak up and to share. And the truth is I know little, it's like I'm in constant state of learning. And I have friends who are so much more educated about different things, whether it's Afghanistan or Yemen or whatever it is, abortion, like whatever it is. And so I will make sure to amplify others who are speaking to things that I find to be important, and I think that's what we could be doing with each other. It's like, that's where social media is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But I, love posting a selfie and love posting about my projects and all that stuff. Like, I don't feel badly about posting about those things. Right. But it's important to me to, I don't know, to add value to the narrative, whatever it is I'm doing.
I don't know. I always learn something from watching your Instagram stories, so I appreciate what you're doing.
I am glad. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And if you had like all the power, what changes would you like to see occur in terms of diversifying media, and how do you think the industry can work to create those changes?
Oh man, snap my finger and just change it right now? No, sorry. Well, I think one of the most important things is it's wonderful that we're seeing more diversity, we're seeing stories, but we need to make sure that the people whose stories are being told are in the writers' rooms. Like, this is for the industry, it's like, it's so important that people are telling their own stories, and it's not to say that we can't have a diverse writers' room, right? But it can't be just someone who has to research about something else. We need authentic voices in those rooms. Otherwise, the story is still from the same, whether it's patriarchal or misogynistic or white centric or colonialist or whatever it is. It's like all this bias comes in, even without knowing. And the truth is that's what happens, is it comes out because it becomes it's like a normal societal narrative of things versus like the real story. So then when people hear real stories, they're like, oh, that's not real. No, that's the way it really, that's the way things really go. And so that's really, really important. And I think, the same thing goes for whatever aspect of society or whatever we're working with, right? It's like we need to ask women about how they want to deal with their bodies. We need to ask farmers what they need. We need to ask Black Americans what reparations and things like that would mean to them, or what it means, to be Black in America. We don't need to hear from white people who think that racism is done. We don't need to hear from, even in this whole, the Black Lives Matter movement, it's like, as a brown woman, like, we were, it was not our time to speak. It was for us to listen and to learn. We have so much colorism and racism and prejudice within our own community. And it was really an important time for people to just go, we're here and paying attention. And at the same time, having to deal with the pain, what it means to be brown in this country, and we had to kind of negotiate that with our friends and our families and ourselves and not center it on us. So I think that's really important, that as whether it's in like activism circles or within your work communities, especially within the artistic community and the industry, is that we listen to the people whose stories and narratives that we want to learn from. It's like, otherwise we're just, I don't know, I'm done with the whole like trying to simplify things, right? Life is messy, life is complicated, and we are complicated as human beings. And I want to hear about that stuff from people who are going through things, so that we can learn. And if we're really listening, and if people are really telling their authentic stories, that's where we find unity in the diversity of things. It's not in like, oh, we're different. That's how we like isolate from each other, right? But if we are focusing on what makes us really unique, there's something very unifying in that, I find. And that's why we have to hear the stories coming from like authentic voices.
I love that. Finding unity in uniqueness.
Unity in the diversity, because look, we are diverse people around this globe, not one of us is alike, but no culture is alike, no, religion or whatever it is, and so what is the one thing that we know exists in all of those realms? Love. And love comes in so many different forms, and it can unify. It's like, I think anything that divides us isn't worth putting our energy into. And it's hard, right? It's hard because people will use that argument against me. And it's like, oh, well, why are you putting so much emphasis on Black Lives Matter or people of color or, BIPOC and all that stuff? Because when one side constantly is talking about, we don't see color, it's not, we just need to all get along. It's like, you're erasing what's right in front of you. You can't jump from A to Z, you have to accept what's in front of you. And if you see me and you see myself and see my color and you learn about where I'm from, that's where we go, oh, and we're more alike than we are different. You can't just go, we're human, we're more alike than we are different. In an ideal world, that's how we would live. We would just know that deep in our core. But that's not how society has raised us up. We live in a world where people are constantly pointing out how we are different from one another and using those differences against us, And so, yeah, I could go on and on and on about that.
I think that's a huge factor also in like color conscious versus colorblind casting as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Super. I mean, it's when I was younger, you saw majority, okay, most white actors could play anything, right? And we were relegated to, and I say this knowing that I had opportunities to kind of go out of the box, but for the most part, play roles that were specifically Indian, specifically that, or Middle Eastern, because they didn't really know the difference, right? And now here we are, this many years later, and it's much more specific. If you're not Middle Eastern, you're probably not going to get cast as Middle Eastern. If you're Pakistani, they want a Pakistani. But somewhere along the line, we still lost the ability to just be actors as
Right.
people of color, right? It's like, because yes, it's good that we're getting cast in those spaces accurately, but also, what happened to just it being about being an actor? Right? That was the argument back then. Oh, it's just for their best actors. Yeah, but you're not letting and I know you spoke about colorblind and color conscious, it's like, so, colorblind is acting like you don't see it. So if I'm an Indian woman, so that is who I am. I could play a character named Sarah who,
Yeah.
and who one might think on the page says, oh, it just says Sarah, it's like, but Kavi as Sarah brings who she is as an Indian woman and her experience as an Indian person living in this country as an American of South Asian descent. Like, I bring those things. And so when casting and producers, and it's happening, I'm not going to say it's not happening. I'm experiencing it. I know it's happening, but we still have a long way to go. And, to say that, that's very color conscious, right? Color blind, I think allows far too much for the scales to be weighed on one side or the other. Oh, we just took the best actor for the job. And then you could just say that. And what can you argue? What can be argued, right? And I think it's the best for the industry itself that things become conscious, because the fact is we as a country are so much more diverse, and more people are mixed race, more people are having mixed race marriages and relationships, and people want to see themselves represented on the screen. And it's not just for those of us who want to see ourselves, it's like, art is such a wonderful way to teach, and if little kids don't grow up seeing people who are different than them on screen, then they're going to think that they're the center of their own universe, which most kids do. That's part of being a child, right? But like, I just realized that my computer is going to die. We're live. I just saw that. Just a second.
In the meantime, I'm gonna send out the link for your film.
Great.
So for the fundraiser. So if anyone wants to check that out right before we dive into that.
I can't believe this. We can keep talking, and now I'm trying to find a cord.
No worries.
How funny.
This is the life of the pandemic reality, though.
It really is. Go ahead, ask me your next question.
Okay, yeah, and on that note, actually, can you talk about how you've pivoted during the pandemic?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, I'm back.
Awesome.
Oh, amazing. Oh, wait, did it work? Oh, give me a second. I'm here. Yeah, how did I pivot? Well, I learned how to do all this stuff. Like every other actor, having to like set up everything in your bedroom and okay, good. We're good to go now. Thank you. Oh man. Okay. The pandemic, was so much, so much intensity for everyone. But I worked so much during the pandemic. And I don't mean like, I mean, I have worked a lot this year, but I'm talking about 2020 when we were all stuck at home. I'm really grateful for my theater group, Antius Playwrights Lab, because we would meet in person before, and I couldn't really go very often because I lived across town and it wasn't, really conducive to get there, and traffic and all that other stuff. But being online, we were doing on Zoom, and so I could be there every week. And so every week I was getting to read like a part in a new play, or someone, 10 minutes of something. I was getting to act every single week. And of course we had breaks and things like that, but I mean, for the most part I was. And I also got to do, we did Hate F, the Off Broadway show that I did in 2019. We did it again on StreamYard, online. So it was, I got to revisit something that I thought I would never get to do again. And that was super special to do that with Sandil Ramamurthy. It was so, so exciting. So I think the pivot was really accepting that there was not work to be had outside. Like that, accepting that it was, or at least in that first 6-7 months, where we didn't know what was happening. And to, I mean, that's where you put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. It's like, can you act? Can you be happy if you're acting and you're not getting recognized or paid for it? Is it, if it's not something that you would do for free, should you be doing it? And it's not hard for me to answer, but it's like, I love it. I love it. I needing to be around other actors, even over Zoom, and then I ended up doing all these readings and like performing, and got to do like several online plays and recorded something. I mean, it's I'm not sure. I'm super, super grateful, but I actually stayed very, very busy. And then I ended up learning to love the self-tape. Really hated it at first, like most people, but really learned to kind of love doing it. Now, that being said, now that we have gotten back into, like, I've had some live Zoom auditions with theatrical auditions and stuff. Oh man, I missed being able to work with the casting director and stuff. Do not miss driving everywhere. So I'm totally okay getting to do that from my bedroom. But yeah, so I think the pivot actually was I was less impatient. It's like before pre-pandemic, I was really impatient at not getting the opportunities to do things and to go out. And, it's like I was doing a play, then great. If not, then I was like, oh, wringing my hands, trying to like create ways to do something. And I think because we were all slowed down and we all were in the same boat, everyone was kind of, people, especially in my theater company, was just like, we've got to keep this going. We've got to do this to support one another. We have to create a space so that we're not all flailing in this place of what do we do, So yeah, it was a hard year for everyone, but I'm very, very grateful for the ways that I was able to continue to act during that time.
Yeah, and I think it really increased accessibility in a way.
Even what you get to see, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would have not done this series if it were not for the pandemic, and I'm able to connect with you and so many artists who I wouldn't have been able to before, and taken so many master classes. And
oh my God, I know. I mean, the access. I mean, I hope that, like, when people could see things that were done by Broadway stars and like Off Broadway and everything, and you're thinking like that kind of accessibility should exist all the time. There are things that I hope never change, that they don't go back, to, I mean, there are many things that I hope would stay the way they did when we all got to kind of slow down a little bit. But yeah, theater accessibility and things like that is so huge. Someone who lives in Middle America may never go to New York, and get to those things, and so expensive and everything like that. And so, yeah, it opened everything up, and I really love that.
Absolutely. And now that I've sent the link out, I think it's a great moment to dive into Now and Never. And so, can you talk about the process of producing and starring in your one-woman film?
Yes, thank you. So actually, this was born out of Antius Playwrights Lab. So it was in December, and they did a kind of end of the year prompt for about 9 or 10 playwrights, and they gave a
Mhm.
prompt of Now and Never. And so
Mm.
one of the playwrights, Natalie Nicole Dressel, named the play Now and Never that she wrote, and we are blind, like I don't know how blind it is, but like we are given like parts, because it's just about reading. It's just so playwrights can hear what they've written.
Mhm.
So I was given the lead role in this 5-person play, 10,
Mhm.
short play. And I read it, and I just thought she was in my head. I was like, I felt such a visceral reaction to it. And then that night we did the reading, and everyone really loved it and like felt some kind of connection to it. And I went to bed that night and woke up at 5:30 in the morning, and I was like, I need to make this into a movie. And I
Mm.
emailed her, and I was like, I have this idea. And a couple of days later, I Zoomed with her, and I spoke to her for about 10 minutes and pitched to her my idea, why I thought this should be a one-person piece, because these characters are actually voices in this woman's head. And
Mhm.
and she was skeptical at first because she had written 5 people. But in 10 minutes, she was like, you can do whatever you want. Now, I was in no position to make a film. Like, I didn't have a director. I didn't really have money or funds to create this project. But I was like, okay, well, one day I'll do this. And then
Mhm.
about a week and a half later, Rogue Machine, which is another theater company I work with, asked me to do a one-act play as part of a Christmas series. And
Mhm.
Kimberly Harris was my director. And within the first 3 minutes, I was like, oh my God, she's the one. She's the one. I had never experienced a director who dealt with character work, the questions she was asking. Like I was mesmerized. I waited 2 more minutes before I interrupted her, and I was like, "Excuse me, but can I talk to you after this about another project?" And then a few days later, when we finished, she reached out to me and she's like, I feel like we're meant to collaborate. Send me the script. I sent it to her. A few days later, we Zoomed, and she's like, I love it, but I have kind of a different thought about it. Because remember, it's a 5-person. She's like, I
Right.
hear your voice through it. I feel like you should be playing all these characters. I was like, that's what I think. So it was like creative soulmates, just it was like, it
Mhm.
was. And then, that was end of December. And I started my production company, Art Heart Love Productions, in March, and brought on Ruhi Mirza Pandya as one of my producers, and she and I began producing it. And I brought on Anu Hodges and Nick Rathod as one. Anu is one of my producers. Nick is my other EP. And then we just, and we shot this film end of July, beginning of August, 3 days. I worked with Kimberly. It was exciting, to have the EP hat and producer
Mm.
hat and actor hat, and I'd never done all of that. Uh, it was exciting. It was terrifying. It was incredible. Working with Kimberly as an actor, rehearsing with her was one of the most exciting experiences of my acting career. Like going that deep and that fully, like with someone, it was so special. And then working on set, I had Anu was with me on set, and like that whole team and Kimberly, knowing that I could let go and I could just be the actor for 3 days, which was fantastic. And we were on 17 people on set. 11 were women, female identifying, and 12 were people of color. So that was actually maybe even 13 were people of color. I mean, it was really, really important to me that all the people in leadership positions were women, and like our entire leadership team, except for Nick, is are women, and it's incredible. And yeah, I mean, it's really hard to think about not having that again. Like after working with
Yeah.
women like that in such a close, like our DP Leia Nova, our editor Celinda Zhao, like and a lot of Asian women. It's like it's super exciting. Yeah, so that's how it came about, and the piece itself is really an isolation story. It's deals with mental health and loneliness, self-compassion. It really, it's a short film, so it takes you on the journey of this one woman and these. We all know what it feels like to be lonely in this time, and while it does take kind of place, is born from the pandemic. It's not just a pandemic, story. Um, it was very, very special, and to have this very women centric, BIPOC, LGBTQ plus inclusive team creating this. It's just been, dream come true in my life. And we are in post production right now, and we've finished a nice chunk of post production in order to submit it to a big festival, and but we are still raising funds. Really, we're raising a lot of for post production. So any amount that anyone can give. We are fiscally sponsored by Film Independent, which is fantastic. That means that every single donation is 100% tax deductible, and to have the support of Film Independent is just such a huge, for my first. It's not the first thing I've produced, but it's the first thing I've produced at this level for myself. And to have so many hats and to have Film Independent support has been fantastic. Yeah, no, I cannot wait to share it. I'm so proud of what we have created. And to have been able to dive into these 5 characters, it was a dream come true. It was like, I'm no longer waiting for someone else to tell me what I'm capable of doing. I felt that even more after I did the Off Broadway show, because it was a 2-hander. And so then you actually had dialogue. It's like I've worked a lot, but and some things more than others have really like pushed me and been really exciting because I got to create like some depth in character work. But that's not always the case, and so to have this, it was amazing. It's just like we have to create our own things if we are, ideally it's all both is happening, right? We work on projects that exist in the world and we create our own, using our own voices, create our own projects. But this was really a passion project for me to just say, you know what, I'm not going to wait anymore for anyone to tell me. So I didn't.
Absolutely. And I just put the definition of a 2-hander into the chat for anyone who might be confused about that. Yeah, I cannot wait to watch it. And I just put the Film Independent link in there as well again.
Thank you.
Yeah. And can you, sorry. This is one of your upcoming projects, but can you talk about if you have any other current or upcoming projects as well?
Yeah, feeling really grateful. I mean, I have a lot of things coming up right now. I was like, I'm a recurring guest star on Mindy Kaling's new show for HBO Max, Sex Lives of College Girls. I play the mom of one of the 4 main girls. It was fun. They had to put gray in my hair and all that stuff. Which is funny because I am old enough. My daughter is 8. My daughter just turned 18. I'm not shy on sharing that, at all. And so I technically. I am old enough to have a college age child.
Right.
So yeah, that comes out, I believe, in November. And I just shot something for Paramount and Nickelodeon. And I shot a short film with an amazing director's production company, production company with Fazia Mirza, who is phenomenal. I can't really talk about the project, but it was so much fun. And I have another feature that is also being submitted to festivals right now that I'm associate producer on and one of the stars of. Constance Wu, who was on Fresh Off the Boat and everything, is one of her films. And yeah, that's a feature film. So it's only September. I'm like, what else is going to happen? But right now,
Yeah.
I'm really working on getting, like, I have so much to do as the executive producer of this project. And yeah, so it's like right now it's just about raising the funds to finish so that we have, we can just start our festival tour and
Mhm.
there. But it's been a really good year. And yeah, and it just, I mean, the thing is that the world has changed now. It's like we're wearing masks on set. We have to deal with all this COVID stuff. And it can be really difficult, just to even like deal with the things that are happening in the world and just how do we navigate being okay. And I think it's just taking it one moment at a time and being grateful for what we do have um, and accepting that some days suck. It's just like, and it
Yeah.
goes back to not having judgment. And I feel like in my life, like I'm in that good space and I want to do as much and share as much, from that space. And um, because we're human, and it's like means we're imperfect and we're allowed to be. And the thing, about being an actor is that you have it's like your job to explore all these different feelings and emotions and learn empathy um, it's just a wonderful gift, and I love that, like, my daughter's an actor, and like I love that I get to share, those things with her as well. And um, yeah, so it's good.
Yeah. And so this show is called A QISSAA with Ishika. And for anyone who is new to the show, A QISSAA means episode or story. So could you share one QISSAA from your life that has been very influential in your career and journey?
Yeah. I get emotional. um Growing up, like I said, I've wanted to do this since I was 5, and there was never a moment that I didn't want to do this, right? Um,
Mhm.
I didn't get swayed, by my parents or anything. I don't know where that came from, but it was like I just knew I had to do this. And I wasn't really close to my dad for a good number of years in the middle of my life. Um, and but towards the end of high school, we kind of reconnected. And I remember he came and saw me in a musical my senior year, and this was before I applied to colleges.
Mhm.
And he came up afterwards, and he was like crying and everything like that. And the next day, we were driving to go play tennis, and he just looks at me and he goes, "So, what's the best place to go to school for something like this?" And it just meant so much because I figured I would be just doing this by myself. And the truth is that, I mean, and I'll say one more to add to that is when I got into NYU, my parents both took me aside and they were like, by God's grace, you got in, so it's our job to make sure you can go. And I've been thinking about these things a lot. My dad died 21 years ago, and I've been thinking about these two things a lot lately. One, because I still hear so many young people whose parents are like trying to get them to do something else before they do the thing that they love, whether it's acting or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And and I just have so much gratitude when I think about the fact that my parents had no proof that I could be successful at this, that they didn't see it. They didn't, there was no, and yet they sent me to New York. They sent me to live my dreams, for whatever else, like, didn't work growing up, and there were plenty of things. Um, by God's grace, that they believed that I could do it. Now, it doesn't mean I don't face all of the stuff, that everyone faces about their parents wanting to make that raise have are you making money? Are you okay? It's like always wanting us to be okay. But I was gonna go one way or the other by myself. But and I think I really took it for granted that they how much they helped me get there.
Mhm.
And so now that my daughter is going into the industry, it's such a full circle. Like, just to, I mean, she's always had me, and she, it's a different, obviously it's a different generation and everything else, but like, to know that she has me, not just moving into the industry, but for the rest of, as long as I'm around, she'll have that support. Um,
Mhm.
Very, very special. But yeah, I've been thinking about those two moments a lot lately.
Yeah. I think having family and community support is so,
Oh,
God, you're gonna make me cry. It's so important. It's so important because like this field is so tough that like even when you're facing rejection constantly, you have someone who still believes in you when you don't believe in yourself.
and I will tell you this, I haven't felt that my whole life. Like, I haven't felt that
Yeah.
my whole adult life. I I sometimes, it's like, I have people who are very supportive. My sisters are very supportive. But that being said, you know, even just as human beings, we're alone as we walk this planet. It's like, but there have been more times than not that I haven't felt that support. And like I said, I was going to do it anyway. And for
Mhm.
those of us like BIPOC, people doing this in this industry, to an extent, we're all that. We're trying to create something out of nothing. We're trying to say we exist because we're human beings. We're part of this story. We're part of this narrative. We are no longer okay with you keeping us out of it. And so we're pushing our way instead of waiting, for others. And so I was always going to do that. Um, but it
Mhm.
doesn't mean it wasn't terribly lonely and heartbreaking. And, um, and so to think back, um, and to be able to reflect on those moments. Sometimes it's really easy just to focus on the things that didn't work when you were a kid, and to be able to pick those couple of moments and go, wow, it made a difference. It made a difference that I wasn't fighting. We weren't fighting each other for me to go and do this thing. It made it that much, little bit more easier for me to do, love
Yeah.
to do, and I want my daughter to never, ever, ever, ever have to feel like 99% of what I've felt when it comes to trying to find and navigate just feeling worth within the industry. It's like,
Mhm.
you have to be very strong, um, but I think something that's really different, and I kind of veering off a little bit, but something that's very different is when I was coming up, and I won't speak for all actors, but I will say for myself, I had this feeling of, if I take this job, like this, working in schools, doing theater, or this like semi full time job or whatever, that I'm going to miss out on something. I lived, it was in my 20s. I lived in the space of like, oh, instead of trusting that the right doors are going to open for me, right,
Mhm.
and the doors that are not right for me are not going to open for me. So like, and that's where I come from now. But like, I said no to so many things that were side jobs, and probably
Mm.
made myself struggle more than I had to. And so what I would do, something that I do a lot with teenagers and their parents and stuff, is I talk to them about, um, this idea of the plan B. You know, it's like,
Right.
that's a very Indian parent thing, but it's also a very parent of actor thing, right? It's like, you've
Mhm.
got to have something to fall back on. And what I
Yeah.
say to them is, look, every time your artist child hears you say that, all they hear is you don't believe that they're going to succeed. And so the difference is back then, that's all I heard, right? And so I probably suffered more than I needed to because I didn't take jobs, um, when they were coming up, like, side things like
Mhm.
that. But now, because of social media, because of computers, because of just in general, people have like so many things that they're into. I tell kids and I tell people, I'm like, find something that you really like doing and make that your side gig so that you're always
Mhm.
happy working. And like, work begets work, but like, joy begets joy. And like, if you can find stuff that you love to do, then do that, because as an actor,
Yeah.
unless you're very, very, very lucky, you're going to have to do other things. So you don't have
Mhm.
to suffer while you're waiting for other opportunities, or suffer while you're creating other opportunities. You can, um, love what you do all the time. And that
Mhm.
is a completely different way of looking at life than what I did when I was younger. You know, um,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of veered off of that, but I felt like I wanted to share.
Yeah, no. And I think that's a wonderful piece of advice. And that was actually one of my last questions. So if you have anything else to add as what advice you would give to younger South Asians looking to go into the arts fields.
Study, find good teachers.
Mhm.
The one thing, when I was coming up, like I was part of the first like 10, 15 South Asian actors on the screen,
Mm.
and we didn't have people to look up to, right? And now there are so many more. And I just don't want anyone to think, and it's kind of the cliche. People are like, "Oh, it's just acting. I can just go jump on the bus and head to LA and like land in LA, and I'm gonna get an agent and I'm gonna book a job." And you know what? That does happen to somebody somewhere. But for the most of us, it's a lot of hard work and perseverance, and you need to know what you're doing, and you need to be get training, and I think I live in my dreams, but I'm also very grounded. And I feel like you've got to be both in order to make this. It's a magical, when you get to be on set, it's magic. But remember, your job is to audition and to do your best and to play and to show up and to be ready and to be in good shape here and in your body and like be strong and be vulnerable and all of these things. And you can only do that if you're um, not constantly stuck thinking in your head. And the best way to do that is to get a good teacher and to sleep well and eat well and do all the things that um like you can't do everything for the goal of, okay, I'm going to book this job. It's like find a way to live a life. I chose to have a child. That was my journey, because I also knew I wanted to have a baby when I was 4. When I held my sister for the first time, so 4 and 5, I was like, okay, I know what I want to do with my life, right? And I'm doing both. But I remember when I wanted to have a baby, I had actor friends say, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I was like, I want to have a baby by the time I'm 30. And I did. I had her 3 months shy of 30 when I turned 30.
Yeah.
But I mean, now she's 18. I'm done. I did it. It's like now she's in this industry and I'm her mom, obviously, but like I grew as a human being by being her mother. That was my choice, right? But I chose to live. I chose to, yes, I couldn't do certain things because I had her, but I also never stopped working. I never stopped acting. I just prioritized that I wanted to be in the classroom with her. And that I always said to myself, if I have one good job every year, then that's enough while I'm raising her, because that was really, really important to me. And I think whatever that is, it doesn't have to be that. That was my journey, but it's like live a life. Don't just live to get the job, because then what's going to happen is you're going to grow older and you'll have a good resume. But like, what is your heart? What kind of life have you lived? You know? And so that would be the biggest thing. Find things that you love doing and then do them. Make your money doing things that you enjoy. You don't have to be passionate about it, but that would be great, But like, find things that you enjoy so that when you have to go to work for something else, that you're not like depressed because you're going to work.
Right.
Because a depressed actor generally doesn't book jobs. I mean, it's just a circle. It's a cycle. So like find ways to live your life. And specifically to my South Asian brothers and sisters, I would say, if you really, really love this, then just accept that you're going to have people in your life that are going to tell you that maybe you're going to have people in your life that are going to tell you that it's not secure enough. It's not, it's not, just know that if you want to do this, then you just have to be willing to take that jump and do it for yourself. And it's scary, and it's totally scary. But and I'll say this: it's like we have a South Asian community now in this industry that we didn't have when I was coming up, and this is actually only the last 4 years that I've experienced it like this. So you're not alone in this journey, and I think that we as a society kind of we're taught that we have to be autonomous and we have to walk, like take care of ourselves and all that stuff.
Mhm.
we need to learn to rely on each other and to create together and come together as community. And I think all of those parts are what make you successful in whatever you're doing in your life, but specifically in this job, because it can be very, very lonely, and it can be very heartbreaking. And we've all experienced it. Like, if not one actor doesn't know what that feels like.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that advice. And I'm putting the link for your website into the chat if anyone wants to find out more about your work. Sorry, I could not find the short version, so I just put the one straight from there.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and thank you so, so much for joining me today. And I honestly have learned so much just from speaking with you, and I hope that the people who are watching have also learned and enjoyed um, listening to you speak. And just thank you so much again for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Of course. And for everyone watching, this is A QISSAA with Ishika. Please make sure to like and subscribe this video and share it with any people that you think might connect with this, or any artists. Yeah, anyone, honestly, who you think would like it. And I will be making an announcement for the next QISSAA very soon. Um, and stay tuned. Bye.
Bye.